update on my allotment. It's the second week of August 2025. Here we are in the northwest coastal part of the UK, and we've had actually quite a good season in that we've plenty of sunshine and actually quite a lot of rain as well. So there are some things that have done really well. So if you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that I had this smaller plot for 7 years, and it's about 3/4 of a tennis court, and I've used that for growing fruit and veg. Last year we acquired some chickens from a family member, and they needed somewhere to go, so we've now got 6 chickens here as well. And also last year this second plot became available, which is a full-sized allotment plot, and that is a bit bigger than a tennis court, a bit longer, but about as wide as a tennis court. So I'll start here. You'll see on a previous video that this was knee-high in weeds, thigh-high in weeds last year. The plot had been neglected for over 2 years. So last winter I just covered everything with plastic, tarpaulin, bits of cardboard, whatever I could get my hands on, to suppress the weeds. And last summer I had just pumpkins and squashes and a few other things growing here to keep the weeds down. So this year we've had a bumper crop of potatoes, and then in this bed here next door, which is mainly covered with the mesh now. This is about an 8 by 25 feet bed. It was meant to have a path down the middle, but you can hardly see the path now. That was full of potatoes, and I've replaced that with winter radish, endive, beetroot, and more leeks and more cabbages, and that's the comfrey plant in the middle. So this is the second sowing of things. These weren't actually sown here though. I put them in as little plug plants that I'd grown from seed. I planted plenty of squash and courgettes this year because they're very good for ground cover, and the squash keep over the winter in a garage, so you don't need to take up freezer space with them. They can be stored at room temperature or a bit below, and so I just planted quite a few of them, mainly for that reason, but also because they are good at suppressing weeds. And although I've done a huge amount of weeding on this upper plot, there are still some perennial weeds that keep coming up, so try to keep those down if I can. So just going down the middle here is some parsnips and celeriac. The celeriac is my third attempt now at growing it, so I'm hopeful that I'm going to have a nice crop. And the sweet peas have been absolutely spectacular. They really have. I did grow them for picking, but I only last 2 to 3 days in the vase, so we've just been enjoying the scent. Now, we had storm floris here a couple of days ago, and it's blown them all down, so I've got to try and stick those back up if I can. So this flower border here, which I've grown for pollinators and to attract more insects to the land, but also I've always wanted to have a cutting border, which I don't have room for at home. So what I've got growing here are dahlias. Some of these were plants, bought as plants or given to me, and some of them are grown from seeds, so they are quite small. And so I'm quite pleased with the amount of bees and hoverflies and things that are making use of them. So the flower border goes right at the side of my plot, and bear in mind that last year, so I cultivated this part of the plot partly last year, but this strip at the side was just like that weedy part there in the neighbouring neglected plot. So over the winter I just covered it with whatever I could get my hands on. That was a mixture of cardboard, grass clippings, garden compost, kitchen waste, literally. And I didn't put the same thing all the way up the border because I didn't have a huge amount of each thing. I just added whatever I had when I had it, just to keep the weeds down and to provide some nutrients that were basically free. So it wasn't a priority area because I'm not growing food, but I did want to have plants growing, flowers growing. So I just put sort of the leftovers of everything on here really, and it's done quite well. So we've got cosmos growing, some of these really huge dahlias, and a few things that are self-seeded, like this dill, self-seeded, and this is Alstroemeria, which I had growing in pots at my house, but it outgrew the pots. And this is called Indian Summer, and it does flower all summer, and it's very good in vases as well. I've grown some statice from seed, and I'm hoping that this is going to start coming out a bit more. It's been a bit suppressed by things like cornflowers and dahlias and what have you, but there's various different colours here. That is an everlasting flower. It's currently being enjoyed by the ladybirds. And this has been another success. This is Astrantia, or the pincushion plants. Now, I've got a packet at home of the bulbs, and the way I remember it is that only one survived, and it wasn't this colour. I'll show you the other one that survived, that's growing. I don't know where it's come from, and it's also not the colour that I had on the packet, so don't know what that is. This is a peach aster. That's another good one for cutting because it has long stems, and I like flowers where you can cut one stem. Oh, we've got a wasp there. Now you can get one stem without cutting lots more and wasting buds, and that is one of those asters. Grew lots and lots of zinnias, but I think quite a lot of them got crowded out by other things. It's been a little bit trial and error this year. Thankfully, I am just frankly, I am just grateful that anything's growing, if I'm honest. Now, this is the other Astrantia, and I don't remember planting this. I'm definitely growing more. It's such a giving plant. It's got a lovely structure. You can pick a whole spray and it looks fantastic in a bouquet, and also the bees love it as well. So I'll definitely be getting some more of that. That's a win. And this was another nice one. Unfortunately, this is another Cosmos, a peach one. But I did grow some scabious from seed, and I didn't think any of it had taken. But looking at this now, I'm thinking that all of these three, the first pink one I showed you, this one and the white one, are actually scabious, in which case I'm so pleased because they were just from a little seed packet, and I'll definitely grow those again. One of the things that we've been quite excited about has been the pumpkins. Now, we had an absolutely chaotic seed sowing session with the grandchildren earlier in the year, and I frankly am amazed that anything managed to get hold. We put them in pots and they grew. Everything grew pretty much. Because I knew it was going to be chaotic, I didn't give them the best seed, if I'm honest. I had some old packets of pumpkins. I'm thinking maybe one or two will come up. Well, they've all come up, and they are really big. There's a huge one further up the plot, so I'm really pleased about that. And another thing is these tromby squashes. These have been really vigorous. Another little ladybird there, and they're in amazing shapes. I'd say that's more a French horn than a trombone, but completely impractical for storing, of course. What an awkward shape, but they will keep over the winter, and use them as you would butternut squashes. Plus they look rather fun as well. These are borlotti beans, which I'm keeping for the beans, not the pods, and make stew and things with those. Unfortunately, there has been a massive disappointment this year, and that has been all of my tomatoes. I grew these, they're called Rose Crush. They are blight resistant tomatoes. A lot of them have got this on here. Now, that's not blossom end rot, is it? Because it's the wrong end. I'm wondering if it's even scorching, because we've had such scorching sun. But these are outdoor tomatoes, so I don't know. When I first planted them, I was cutting out the side shoots, tying them in, etc., etc., and they were just they just took off, and I've just completely lost control of them now. I'm very disappointed with the small amount of fruits that's growing. They've got plenty of nutrients in there. I can see there's another brown one in there. I don't know what's wrong with them. I'm just going to go back to some bog standard Gardener's Delight next year. So that has been the huge disappointment. I don't know what's wrong with that tomato. If you know, if you can tell me. I have watered them. They've got compost in here. We've had plenty of rain. I've never had such dreadful tomatoes. I've been growing tomatoes almost every year for about 30 years, and I've never had such awful tomatoes. I'm very disappointed. Anyway, on here we've got cabbages, swede, red Russian kale there, and these round-leaved ones here were given to me by a friend. I would never ever have thought of growing sprouts, but a friend gave them to me. I stuck them in. I'm really, really pleased. So far, no sign at all of any caterpillar damage. You can just about see the little caterpillar, the little sprouts growing. So I'm very much looking forward to having those for my Christmas dinner. The other thing that's been great has been these climbing beans. And I made a little wigwam, so it's a nice structure for the garden. So that's gone quite well. And another disappointment, unfortunately, has been this fruit, because those raspberries were really, really prolific last year because of the amount of rain. But because of these fir trees, they didn't get enough moisture and they haven't produced any fruit. So that's a bit of a shame. So onto the lower plot, and if you look right back to the beginning of my allotment videos, you'll have seen this area. It was really overgrown with a huge honeysuckle, and there was a pond which we'd created in the pandemic, but it was completely overgrown. So this year my husband built this wildlife pond. We've seen the odd dragonfly, lots of hoverflies and bees and wasps taking advantage of the water. I did arrive here one day and there were 2 ducks on it, and they quickly left and went to the bigger pond that's over in the field nearby here. We think there's pond skaters so far. We're just waiting to see what arrives, really. Pond skaters and water boatmen. There's a wasp having a drink. And I think there might be the odd minnow. And we've just planted some stuff and allowed some wild stuff to grow here, and I'm quite pleased with the effect, considering it was so random. That's the chamomile and some borage there, the blue borage, and so I'm afraid it's a bit past its best, but this central bit here, which I planted this year, because we did have a pear tree here which had to be taken down, so I didn't put any nutrients on this ground and just scattered some wild seed and some cosmos, and this plant has grown up here, and if you know what it is, if you can tell me. It's not something I would have chosen as a colour for Cosmos. Pretty sure it is a Cosmos, but the rest of the packet that is growing here is all pinks and blues and purples, so not quite sure what this is, whether it's just a mutant. So I'll be keeping the seed from it to see what we get next year, but that's a bit random to say the least. So another thing that I've really enjoyed allowing to grow, has been this yarrow. Now, I inadvertently planted some seed as well, which is on the top plot. It's meant to be multicoloured, and the darkest I got was a little bit darker than this. So in the wild, you normally get whites or pinks, and this pink was a tiny little spot last year, and it's really, really expanded this year. So it's called yarrow as a wild plant, and it's very good for healing insect bites and things like that. I've actually made balm from it, and but as a cultivated plant, it's known as a Achillea, but I won't be buying any more seeds because I've got it growing wild. I quite like the border it's making there. I'll just quickly take you into the polytunnel. So here's my other tomato disappointment. These are Berner Rose, and as I say, they've had compost, they've had comfrey tea, water. I believe that dark mark at the top is scorching. We have had some really, really hot days here, but this is the 7th of August today, and I've never had tomatoes this late. If it wasn't for these Sun Gold cherry tomatoes, which are a sort of orangey colour, we'd have had no tomatoes so far. So I'm very disappointed with those. It's a bit late for these to start producing something. Just going to have to keep watering them. I don't know why they look like this. I'm purposely not crowded them out too much, but that's the only thing I can think of. The cucumbers have been a bit better. Had plenty of cucumbers off here. And I'm also drying quite a lot. That's coriander drying. Onion leaves to make stock from, calendula petals, mint, and bay leaves. Some of these look too hot as well. Even though both of the doors are open, it does get fiercely hot in here. So that's what it's saying. 39 degrees. I don't know when I last reset this, but that's even with the doors open, both doors open. It's too hot. So that brings you largely up to date with the allotment plot. Just say a little bit word about medicinal plants. Because of all the weeds I had on the plot last year, I did strim between the growing beds last year, and whilst I was strimming down some plantain, I'll show you that in a minute, I suddenly asked myself what I was doing, and realised I had this strange feeling that I was ploughing ahead with the trying to make some space to grow stuff, and not really thinking about what was already growing there. And the yarrow is a really good example. I didn't actually know what that was until last year, and say a bit more about that in a second. So the main plants that I'm talking about are yarrow, plantain, another herb called self heal. Again, I'd seen it, but I didn't know what it was. So I stopped trimming everything I saw, and I have left some of it growing. So the medicinal plants I've got growing here now are things that were growing here already. 99% certain they weren't planted by anybody, because I see them growing elsewhere now with different eyes, and I realise that they're native to here and have probably been growing here for many years. Probably will grow for many years after I've gone. So I'll just briefly go through each one. So the calendula I did know about, and I've made calendula lip balm from that a couple of years running now. So basically you just get the petals and dry them, steep them in oil, and then make a lotion or balm from the oil, the strained oil. Now the comfrey, I'll link to another video I've done where I made comfrey balm, and that is pretty amazing stuff, to be honest. Quite incredible. I'll just stop to show you these lovely caterpillars eating my cabbage. It's actually purple sprouting broccoli. I didn't have anything to, you can get an environmentally friendly bacteria which stops them eating, but when I looked at the price of it, it was £20, which I wasn't prepared to pay. There isn't £20 worth of purple sprouting broccoli here, so I fired them off. This is in spite of having a net on, so this is an insect net, a butterfly net, and they still got in. So I fired them off with a hose, and here's a few that have remained. They're going to be chicken food shortly. So as I say, this is the yarrow, and I am not a botanist or a herbalist. So if you are thinking of making something with some yarrow that you've got growing, please make sure that you can identify it. I will show it to you in detail now, but you must make sure you can identify this plant correctly, because there are similar plants in the UK that grow and they are deadly poisonous. So it has these feathery leaves. It seems to me to just grow in dry areas, it seems to like the dry. I've noticed this particular patch took off this year when the weather's been particularly dry. It's either white or varying shades of pink, and it has these lovely flowers that the insects really like, and it grows in clumps and spreads, so I'm going to have to curtail it at some point. But so this is yarrow. Now you can dry it, and I've made a balm with this and plantain, which I'll show you in a second, and it's absolutely brilliant if you've been stung by a nettle or a biting insect. Now in the UK we don't have any poisonous as such insects. The worst you'll get is a horsefly bite, a wasp or a bee, and unless you've got have a severe reaction to them, it will be unpleasant, but it won't really do you any lasting damage. But they are very painful, and nettles. I've had so many nettle stings this summer, so they're brilliant. You put it on straight away with a nettle sting, and it's absolutely fantastic. So so that's the yarrow. Just while I'm passing, this is a yellow courgette. We've picked dozens of these, and the chickens absolutely love them, which is great, because if we've got too many, we just feed them to the chickens. So I'll just go up and show you the plantain. And it was the plantain where I had the weird sort of thought, which was, why are you trying to kill this plant? What are you doing? It was so strange. It was a really strange moment. I suddenly thought, I'm just killing everything. You know, I would never poison things. I've never had any poisons or weed killers on the allotment, but I was trying to obliterate it, and then I just stopped. So plantain, you can have it growing narrow or broad leaved. It's pretty distinctive as a plant. Now I've only got the narrow one growing here, so it just grows everywhere. This is it here, with these spear-like leaves, and then it produces these seed heads like this. Now, as I say, I have known this plant all my life, unlike the other ones that I just mentioned, and we used to wrap the stalk around the seed head and fire these at people. That's all we ever used them for, until I started looking things up and realised that it's fantastic for, as I say, nettle stings, that kind of thing. Here's another one. It just grows, it's like a weed really. Well, it is a weed. But then a weed is a definition of something that you don't want growing somewhere, and I didn't, but I now do. So those are the main ones that I'm looking after. I'm being a custodian of them, making sure that they don't die out on this plot, and I'm making use of them as well. I can't see any self-heal at the moment. No. I did have a lot of self-heal growing here, and this was an area where I had to cover to suppress the weeds so that I could plant other things. So I actually can't see any at the moment, but I did obtain some seeds, and I have got that growing separately, and I will be making use of that. Now that, I don't want to make claims about these products because I think it's all very personal and to the individual, but self-heal, so it's I'll show you a picture of it as well, but self-heal's its Latin name is Prunella vulgaris, meaning common. So in olden days people used it to heal themselves, hence the other name, self-heal, and it was basically used for all sorts of things. Do a bit of research. I'll also link to a herbalist who I follow, well, the two, it's a husband and wife who have a website called Home is Where Our Heart Is, and they are herbalists, and they will go into a lot of detail about these herbs I'm mentioning and give you much more information about them. But I just thought I'd show you where they're growing on my plot. And there's the comfrey, of course, which I've just left growing dotted around, and that makes comfrey balm, which is great for aches and pains. I've used it myself successfully, and also you can make comfrey tea out of it, which is a bit like a liquid fertilizer for plants. So I think that's covered everything for now, and I hope you've enjoyed this update. I'd like to show you more when I can. You're sort of seeing the garden a little bit past its best. As I say, this is the second week of August, and it was pretty spectacular, along with the sweet peas. I'll see if I've got some photographs I can insert, but it really was quite spectacular. But we've still got lots to harvest. I don't think I showed you the onions, did I? So this is the year where I've taken a step from growing a bit of this and a bit of that and being quite pleased to have anything really fresh, to actually trying to grow enough. So in my extended family there's 8 of us in 3 houses near to here, and age range from very small to very old. And I think what it was the onions last year. They were really successful and so much nicer than shop onions, but I just didn't grow enough. I could have just grown twice the amount, and I just didn't. So this year I've already harvested loads, So there's more to harvest there, and there's more to harvest at the end, and shallots. I used to think it wasn't worth growing onions because they're quite cheap, but they're so different to shop purchased onions. They're so easy to grow and really rewarding. Oh, just one last thing I'll mention is the parsnips. These parsnips were growing amongst the potatoes. It was my mistake. I grew the parsnips, and I thought that they'd have enough room next to the potatoes. They were completely crowded out by the potatoes. But once I'd harvested the potatoes, look how perky they are now. And so they were growing from seed, and parsnips is one of the few things that I grow in the ground. And it's always a bit hit and miss. You put them in the ground, you don't know if you're ever going to see them again. But along with the Brussels sprouts, I'm really hoping that I'll have some of these to harvest for Christmas lunch. And there is one of the squashes. It is about 18 inches across. I can't remember what type that is, but it's a bit too big really. Gonna have to sort of chop that up. Gonna make a lot of soup with that. And then I'm just going to tell you something else about the parsnips. So some of them are, that's Celeriac, sorry. No, I don't know if you can see. Oh, you can't. I'll just take you further up. Wait a minute. I need to sort my paths out for next year. This is ridiculous. Spend more time trying to work my way through the undergrowth. And there's the whole plantain plant growing. You can see how it grows with these whirly flowers in spear-shaped leaves, and then the seed head on the top. So you next to the disastrous tomatoes, you can just about see here there are some parsnip plants. Now I planted those somewhere else. I sowed them somewhere else. I can't remember where it was now. I think it might have been it was just too close to the tomatoes. I know which now I'd have given more room to, because the tomatoes are useless. But I actually moved them. Now you're not supposed to move parsnips because they have a taproot, and if you break it, it kills it and it doesn't turn into a parsnip. But did only just come up, so I spent a couple of hours replanting them as seedlings further away. Now what we've got here, we've got more plantain growing. I'm going to have to be a bit more organised next year, I think. What I will do is I will just pull one of these up to show you that they are actually growing. You see, that one's a bit small, of course. So they'll stay in the ground until December, and I'm really quite pleased with those. They've survived basically, and I'm looking forward to harvesting those. I'll feed this to the chickens, this one. They love parsnips. But so despite what you might have heard, if you're very, very, very careful and patient, you can actually move parsnips. So I might do that in future. I might have like a seed bed and then transplant them to the final bed. I have to see. Well, you can see quite a lot here from this point. You can see most of the plot, and I hope you have enjoyed this little tour. And if you haven't already, do subscribe if you enjoy the occasional allotment update and news from the plot. And also if you're interested in cooking or sewing, I do that as well. And I'd really love it if you could answer any of my questions from this video, because I've got plenty.